I now call to order the Planning Commission meeting of August 24, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the statement of values. Commissioner Biagini.
As we gather this evening, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength and courage and the will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice for all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Elizabeth, please call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Bhatnagar? Commissioner Biagini?
Here.
Chair Kuru?
Here.
Commissioner Hero is absent. Commissioner Wang?
Here.
Commissioner Salim?
Here.
Commissioner Bouza?
Present.
Thank you.
We do have a quorum. We have to consider absentees now. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Harrow this evening?
Yes. And Commissioner Bhatnagar, if I may add.
And Commissioner Bhatnagar, thank you.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I think two of us did.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. The motion is to excuse Commissioner Bhatnagar and Commissioner Hero. Commissioner Biagini?
Yes.
Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Salim?
Yes.
Commissioner Bouza?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our newly appointed Planning Commissioner, Commissioner Bouza. Welcome, warm welcome. And you were appointed on August 16, 2022. If you want to share briefly about yourself, your background, and your interest to serve on our commission.
Well, try to cut it short because I like to move things along. I was in the lifelong resident of Santa Clara. Went to schools in Santa Clara. My family, raised a family of 4 here in Santa Clara also. Was 8 years on the Civil Service Commission and a small businessman. He just recently retired and looking to go into other ventures. And it's a pleasure being here in the Planning Commission next to friends. And I look forward to helping and serving and working along with the rest of our commission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, we always pride ourselves that this is one of the best run public meetings. We are very proud of our Planning Commission and our staff to help us run this, and we welcome you.
Oh, that's not what I used to say when I was in the civil service, chair of the civil service. I used to say, we were the best.
It's a standard script.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We will have the declaration of commission procedures. Commissioner Biagini, if you could do the honors.
Thank you, Chair Kuru. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. 1, the chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. 2, any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. 3, applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals following staff presentation of the item. Other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of the comments. Number 4, no additional comments will be accepted upon the close of public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. 5, special procedures and time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. And number 6, appeal of commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days.
Thank you, Commissioner Biagini. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. Continuances and exceptions. This part of the meeting allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item to be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. Are there any requests from applicants, the public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda?
No, we do not have any requests. I do see Commissioner Salim has his hand up. No? Okay.
I was just going to greet our new commissioner. I can wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noted. So we'll move to the next item, consent. Okay, the Planning Commission has 7 members. Whenever the full commission is not present, like today, applicants have the option to continue their item to another meeting. Any requests from the applicants for any continuances?
No, we've not received any requests.
Okay, so we'll move on. Today will hopefully be a short meeting. Consent calendar. There are 5 items on today's consent calendar. Again, I'm going to look to Commissioner Biagini to read the procedures.
Okay, the procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on a consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on regular agenda, make the request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items, and here are the 5. 1A, Planning Commission meeting minutes of August 3rd, 2022, special meeting. 1B, Planning Commission's 2023 calendar of meetings. 1C, action on a use permit to allow for the expansion of an existing photovoltaic, did I say that right?
Yes.
Power generating system at 500 El Camino Real. It's on the Santa Clara University campus. 1D, action on a variance to increase site sign area and the maximum height and width of monument signs, and architectural review for an office campus master sign program at 2811 to 2841 Mission College Boulevard. And 1E, action on a use permit to allow on-site sale and service of beer, wine, and distilled spirits, which is ABC Type 47, at an existing banquet facility located at 2670 El Camino Real. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Biagini. That was a full read. I only have color commentary before we go to a motion. I noted that we have a good year ahead of us and a couple of months where we have 2 meetings, so the calendar of meetings was a good find. I also wanted to acknowledge the use permit application on the existing PV by the university. For record, this is not subject to CEQA under a recent statute by the state. So thank you for that. That was an awareness for me personally, I hope for the commission as well. And I was truly impressed with the master sign program brought forward by our Sobrato applicants. Again, it is a variance, so I want to make sure we are acknowledging the consent calendar. And the use permit, of course, is our usual alcohol license, ABC type 47. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar with the stipulation of Commissioner Buza abstaining on the meeting minutes.
And I will abstain from the meeting minutes as well. Thank you.
And I will second the motion.
Any discussions? Anybody objecting? Okay.
And I'm sorry, just for the record, it's customary for the person requesting the extension to actually state it themselves. So Commissioner Buzo, is it your intention to abstain from the minutes?
I'm waiting. Yes, I would like to abstain from voting on the minutes since I just became a commissioner, so.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I thought I had it right.
You always do.
The motion is to approve the consent calendar. Commissioner Biagini,
Yes.
Commissioner Cherakuru,
Yes?
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Salame,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza.
Yes, except for 1A.
Yes, thank you.
And noted with the exception of my abstaining for 1A as well, Elizabeth.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Barely.
I will say, just for the record, for some reason, all the votes are not showing up on my screen. I don't know why, but it will be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you. All right, that moves us right along to public presentations. This section of the meeting is reserved for public to address the commission on any item not on the agenda. We have a member of the public, but I'm not sure if it's for topics related or unrelated. Okay, we'll move. Do you want to say something, sir? Okay. Okay, we will hear you when the item is heard, if it's not.
Yes, the speaker has submitted a card to speak on item 2.
Got it.
So when we get to item 2 and we open up to public comments, we'll have you come up and speak.
Thank you for the clarification. So we don't have anybody else online, right?
Chair Salem does have his hand raised again.
Oh,
Sorry, Commissioner Salem.
thank you so much for monitoring.
you.
I can't see it, so I appreciate it.
So I have actually a process question directed more at our council Xander. In the situation we just experienced with 2 abstentions and 2 commissioners absent, is there a situation where we could literally have not had a quorum to approve the consent calendar? And then what happens when that situation happens?
Right. Well, if under the charter, we need a minimum of 4 votes when we have a full complement, meaning when we have 7 commissioners, regardless of whether some of them are absent or not, you need 4 votes to act. So if we'd had an abstention and people absent so that we only had 3 votes, we would have to continue the item until a subsequent meeting.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to
Yes.
double check because that was kind of spooky. We got close on that one.
We narrowly made it, yes. Thank you, Commissioner.
Good one. All right, moving right along, we move to the agenda area for public hearing. We have only one today, and it is the study session on the work of the Homelessness Task Force. Staff?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Adam Marcus. I'm the Housing Manager with the city's Housing and Community Services Division. And tonight I'll be providing an update on our Homelessness Task Force and the community process that we've been working on for the last several months.
Could
Can
you
hear me
speak
okay?
up? Audience would like to. Thank you.
Okay. Just let me know if it's not loud enough. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start in with the first slide. Next slide. Oh, sorry, I forgot I have this. Right. So tonight we wanted to go over a couple of key trends that we've seen regarding homelessness, both in the city and the county. We'll then talk a little bit about the county's community plan to end homelessness and how that relates to our own efforts going forward. We'll talk a bit about what we've been doing so far and what we hope to be doing going forward with this plan. And again, we'll provide an update on our homelessness task force, which has its second to last meeting this week, tomorrow night, and the plan that will come forward later this year, and some details on next steps. So some of you may have seen this slide before. The orange bars indicate the number of homeless individuals within the county from 2013 through the present. And this is the point in time count that's done every 2 years. And the black bars represent the city's homelessness count. As you can see in 2022, the point in time count did go up countywide. We don't yet have our numbers at the city level, but we do anticipate getting them within the next few weeks. As soon as we have those, we will be sharing those out. Next slide. Oh. Again, this is information from our 2019 point in time count. So this may change when we get our updated reports. But you can see some of the varied causes of homelessness. And there are quite a few, and I won't go into all of them. But it is important to note that homelessness is not a monolith, that there's a lot of reasons why people become homeless and remain homeless. There's also people who aren't homeless, but who are potentially at risk of becoming homeless, and that would be people who are earning extremely low levels of income. And to give you a sense of how many people that is in the city of Santa Clara, it's over 5,000 people. Again, these may be people who are housed. They may be people who are housed and paying more than 30% of their income on housing. And life events might very well push them closer to homelessness. So it's important when we think about the numbers, it's not just 300 people who are already homeless. It's the people who are at risk of becoming homeless as well. So when we talk about homelessness, it's not something any one city can solve on its own. It's a problem with many causes, with many roots. And so that's why we really need to focus on how we work together and how we work with the county. And luckily, we are located within a county that has done quite a bit to address homelessness. And one of the things that is evidence of that is the community's plan to end homelessness. This is a countywide plan that covers 2020 to 2025. The city of Santa Clara did endorse this plan in March of 2021. And this plan, it's a great resource. If you haven't seen it before, I really encourage you to at least browse it. I know you may not read the whole thing, but it's really well done, and it was built on many meetings with many stakeholders, many of whom have lived experience with homelessness, and who are providers of services. The three main strategies that are included in the county's plan. Strategy one is really to address the root causes. So they may be economic, they may be in terms of education. Many systems are coming together to contribute to homelessness. Strategy two really focuses on preventing homelessness and stemming the tide, so to speak, of people newly becoming homeless, and trying to limit the amount of time people remain homeless to sort of speedily get them back on their feet if they're able to do so with minimal help. And strategy three is really looking at what are some immediate things we can do, both to improve the quality of life for those who are homeless, as well as the neighborhoods and that are impacted by some of the effects of homelessness. So what can be done in the short term? And really those strategy 2 and strategy 3 are really the areas where cities can really have an impact. Root causes are much bigger, but we can fund programs, we can build housing, we can work together with developers and service providers, and we can make an impact there. And so you may think that we're just starting from scratch, that this task force is a beginning point, but actually the city's been doing quite a bit. So I want to give credit to the city staff, to the city council who have already been working on homelessness. It's a big lift and there's always more to do, but I wanted to quickly highlight a few of the things that we already do and we are continuing to do. As you may know, our police department has a community response team that is out every day responding to people in encampments and some of the issues that occur there. Our community development department operates what we call the tenant-based rental assistance program. That's using some of our HUD dollars, and that's really short-term rental assistance for families with children who are homeless or fleeing domestic violence. We also support homelessness prevention programs through funding agreements that we have with the county, and that allows people who are at risk of homelessness to reach out to those services and get assistance with, for example, deposit assistance, rental assistance, and other housing search assistance to prevent homelessness. We just started a pilot project, which is a mobile shower and laundry service in partnership with We Hope, Dignity on Wheels, and that service is currently operating Monday mornings, 9 to 1 on Bassett Street, just north of 101. And those are just a few of the things, and I want to recognize that our Parks and Recreation, libraries, fire, public works, as well as our building department, there are many, many city staff who are interacting with and working on homelessness in different ways that I'm not listing here, but I want to acknowledge. And one of the things that I work on and that the community development team works on is housing. How do we create more housing, more affordable housing? And so this is a snapshot of our 100% affordable housing developments that are in our pipeline. So it's almost 1,300 units, of which about 306 are extremely low income units, and a smaller number of that are specifically transitional housing or permanent supportive housing with services provided on site, supportive case management and whatnot. Okay. All right. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a few of those projects. So some of you may be familiar with the Bella Vista Inn on El Camino Real. It's currently being renovated. It is under construction. RCD, which is an affordable housing developer, is in the process of converting it into interim housing. This is a home key site that's using state money and other sources to renovate the hotel and create it for housing to rapidly rehouse people who are either at risk of homelessness or already are homeless. It is short term, and after a period of approximately 2 years, phase 2 will kick in, and if everything comes together as planned, the project will then grow and have an additional tower of units that will then be more permanent in nature. So currently we're looking at 43 new units, I should say renovated units, coming available early 2023 is when they'll be occupied. And on site, they will be providing a wide range of support services, case management, counseling, social services, and employment. Another example that you may be familiar with is Calabasas Apartments, which is on Kiefer near Corvin. It is now open and occupied. It was a joint project with Allied and Abode. It is targeted towards individuals experiencing homelessness as well as other extremely low-income residents. There's a total of 145 apartments, of which 80 are extremely low income and 65 are very low income. And many, as with the other ones, many supportive services are provided on site, including case management, social services, job assistance, financial literacy, computer training, health education, and more. And so here, that gets us to sort of our topic tonight, which is what are we doing right now? What are we doing moving forward? And with the Homelessness Task Force, the purpose and the role of that task force is really to educate and to provide outreach and to understand the issue locally and to understand what's working and where are the gaps, what could be done, what more can be done, to brainstorm ideas, to help prioritize those ideas, and to make recommendations where the staff and home base who we're working with as our consultant together we'll put together a draft plan and bring that out for public hearing later this year. And here's a list of our task force members. I want to say that when we asked for volunteers to serve on this task force, we were really surprised at how many people were interested. We got over 100 applications for 6 seats. Well, 8 seats when you count the at-large. That's pretty good. So we're really proud that that Santa Clarans really want to engage in this issue and really want to help be part of the solution. And we've had some great conversations so far. I want to also point out that we made sure to include and to set aside seats for persons with lived experience of homelessness, persons with lived experience, because that's a critical piece, a critical knowledge that we need in this conversation. What's also unique about this is that it's not just members of the community from different council districts. It's also, we also have representatives from different service agencies who are every day who are working to provide services and working on housing policy around homelessness. And these are the folks that really understand what it takes to make a program work well. And so it's been really helpful to have them in the room with us. So again, in addition, I think some people feel like we're only doing the task force, but that's just part of it. This is a larger outreach process. So in addition to the task force meetings, we also hosted a community-wide forum that some of you, I believe, attended. We're doing individual stakeholder interviews and a survey. We're going to survey small business owners, just business owners in general, to understand how homelessness may affect their operations, and focus groups, including one of which was a focus group with city staff. And here's a summary of some of the topics we've covered so far for those of you who haven't tuned in. And by the way, all of these have been recorded on video. So if you weren't able to attend and you're interested, you still can. And if you have comments after you've watched those videos, I'll have some contact information for you at the end of this. But we did, we started off with introductions and everyone got to know each other and kind of establishing what we were going to do. We then looked at the various homelessness services that exist. We looked at outreach services in terms of street outreach and assessment. We looked at shelter and transitional housing models. And tomorrow night, if you have some time, we'll be talking more in depth about extremely low-income housing development as well as supportive housing development, some of the challenges that and the barriers that we face in building more of that housing, and also hearing some more updates on the other engagement that's been occurring. We're going to take September off and allow Homebase some time to synthesize all this great information that they're gathering through the outreach process, as well as all the data and information. And hopefully by then we'll have our updated 2022 point in time count information. And then we'll wrap up and end the task force in October. And we'll be asking those task force members to help prioritize the ideas. There's a lot of ideas, and sometimes the hardest thing is figuring out, what do we start with? What's the most important? What's the most impactful? And what do we have the resources to do now? And again, we're not meeting just to meet. We don't meet to hear ourselves talk. We need to translate this into a plan. So that's all part of the plan. The engagement is the first phase, and later this year we will be bringing forward a draft plan for public hearing for all of the stakeholders, yourselves included, to weigh in on, to evaluate, and to give us feedback on, and ultimately for the city council to vote on and really direct staff on how we should be moving forward and what new resources we should be seeking to support what we know is going to take more than we currently have. So really trying to figure out, where can we find those resources externally to leverage what we do have. And so here's our next steps. As I mentioned, we have a meeting tomorrow evening. It's a virtual meeting. All of our meetings have been virtual so far. Our final meeting in October, and public hearings to be announced later this year. If you are interested in staying connected, I would very much encourage you and anyone who's watching to go to our website, which is santaclaraca.gov/HTF. And at that website, you can see the videos and agendas from past meetings. But more importantly, you can also sign yourself up on our Gov Delivery email list, and that will get you yourself on the list. And then when we do have a draft to post and when we're ready for public hearings, you'll be the first to know. So definitely encourage you to sign yourself up for that. And if you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to Homebase, which is they're our facilitator, and I have the email and phone number there on the screen. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. These are just a few of the questions that I had for you that might be helpful for us to hear from you about, but of course, I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and I'll just run through them real quick. The first question is, when we're looking for sites for interim and supportive housing, what are some factors that we should be considering? How can we ensure that interim and supportive housing developments are good neighbors in the long term? And I know we're still gathering all the information, but from this point in time and from what your experience and what you've heard from your friends and family and colleagues, what do you think are some key actions that the homelessness plan should include here in Santa Clara? So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair, I just want to note for the record, Commissioner Bhatnagar has joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I do not have visuals on the online attendees. I'm looking to staff for any raised hands, but I'm sure our commissioners here as well have lots of input. Commissioner Biagini?
I actually have a question that you don't have on that list for discussion, and that comes from the following. I currently care for an old friend who's a disabled senior that's homeless, so we have a lot of conversations about homeless. And one of the things that continually gets brought up, we'll both be at the meeting tomorrow, is the definition of extreme low income and very low income. And by that I mean when you look at places like Bella Vista Inn or Calabasas Apartments, what do you anticipate a studio or a one-bedroom would cost? Because when you look at AMIs, I can tell you from her perspective, and she's certainly not alone, the definition of low income is far above anything she can afford. So if you had that information, I'd be real interested in hearing what we're looking at.
Well, I thought you might ask that, so I do have a backup slide for you here.
Smart man.
So this might be a little bit small, but the first table on the top is, and sorry if I tried to highlight it and it's a little bit off, but extremely low income is less than 30% of area median income. For a household of one, that's an income of $35,400 or less. So that's sort of like the most you can make to be considered extremely low income. The second table is rents. So if you, and this is 2022 rents, these are income limits from the state. If, again, depending on what your income is, if your income is close to 30%, then the most rent that could be charged, according to this, would be a little bit over $1,000 per month. Now, I say that because it depends on the program. And so some programs are based on percentage of income. So you pay the percentage of income that you can, and other programs allow the project sponsor to charge up to these limits. So I would have to follow up to see if the Bella Vista Inn is going to be using these limits, or if they're going to be using a percentage of that person's income.
So when you're talking about AMIs, in this case in Santa Clara County, you're looking at the 168,500 figure that you come up with an AMI, 15%, 30%. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the reason, so let me do a follow-up question. Again, it's enlightening talking to somebody who's in that position. A senior, she's older, that gets $1,200 or $1,300 a month from Social Security is obviously what I would call extreme low income. And if these are the 2022 rents, for lack of a better way of putting this, is there any controls that the next year it's not going to double? Because I can pretty much tell you her Social Security isn't going to double or go up by 15% or things to that effect. And I also understand how rent control can be a controversial subject. But that's one of the problems I see, because when you say this is the rents this year, that automatically suggests strongly that it's going to go up. By how much? Am I going to be homeless again? And there's also the issue of Section 8 housing. Not every place will offer Section 8 housing, and she's been on the wait list now, I want to say, we're getting pretty close to a year, because apparently it wasn't so much finding the housing. Valley Village in Santa Clara is great. It was getting the Section 8 voucher that seems to be almost impossible in less than a year or more. Help.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard
the same.
Wish I had more I could say about Section 8 vouchers. I think there's a long line. There's been a long line for a very long time. So once you get the voucher, the next challenge is finding a landlord who will accept it.
Accept it, right.
But the bigger challenge is getting the voucher.
Getting it, sure. That's right.
To answer your question, you're absolutely right. As median income continues to increase here, the income limits also continue to increase, and they never go back down. And that's state law.
And dare I say, the median income probably has an opportunity to increase quicker than Social Security. There's a big problem.
So for people, that's why it's really important that we're very specific when we say affordable housing about what we really mean and who that really serves, because 10 years ago, or let's say 5 years ago, if your income was relatively similar to what it is today, you might have been very low income. And depending on where you were, you might now be considered extremely low income because this keeps marching to the right, because the income keeps going up and the limits for each of these percentages keeps going to the right and going up. So it really points to the need for more ELI housing. Just so you know, this year they created a whole new category below ELI called acutely low income.
Right.
Because more people are now falling into that category.
I'm wondering what they're going to call the next phase, desperately extremely low income. Anyway, thank you, Commissioner Cherakuru.
I had a question too.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, Nancy hit most of the bases, Commissioner Biagini hit most of the bases, the questions I was going to ask. But one of the things that I noticed, I got a two-part question. Out of the 326 that Santa Clara Homeless has, how many of them are seniors? And how many other are people with mental illness? And the second part of this question is, are you working together try to pair off seniors with, like, for instance, a two-bedroom apartment? I see this is going to go for $568, according to your chart right here. That will save quite a bit of money if you could find two seniors that are compatible, and that way they will bring it down their prices. But my main concern is how many of the actual count of 326 are Santa Clara, that were prior Santa Clara residents that were displaced, and at the same time, and at the Vela Inn, are you offering a counseling service? Because one of the things that you said in your, that you showed in your presentation was that as people that are at risk. So it means if you're at risk, you're not there yet. So do you have a counseling service working with people? And another thing that I want to add on here is, and for the apartments that you have right now for transition, people coming in, are you going to be tracking that and see what the success of that program is going to be, and keep us informed on that, because that's very important to see if things are working and how they're working, and see if it can be improved or expand to different locations too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Buza. I don't have the breakdown tonight on how many of those 300 or so individuals who are currently homeless are seniors or have mental illness. So I'd have to, I think the point in time count may break that down. And so I could probably find, well, I would check, the first thing I would do is check the 2019 report and see if it's in there. And then, of course, our 2022 report should be coming soon in the next few weeks. So as soon as we get that, we'll definitely share that with the commission. And I can also ask our friends at the county, if it doesn't include that, there may be another source where we could at least estimate that in terms of seniors. The mental illness piece, I don't know of any data off the top of my head that tracks that. Like, it's not a census thing, but and some of that has to do with confidentiality in terms of medical confidentiality, what can be reported. And so I would have to look into that and see how we can estimate that. I think anecdotally we do know, we have been hearing from staff that they are increasingly encountering people at city facilities who do have mental health and or substance abuse immediately apparent. And so that's an anecdotal comment, but I don't have numbers tonight. In terms of your question about matching people up to be, I think, roommates to help, sometimes we call that home sharing, and that's a small program that I believe the county has looked into and possibly funded, and that's more for single-family homes. So you might have a senior citizen who is house rich, cash poor is sort of the saying that I've heard before, where they may have a house, but they can't necessarily maintain it because of their fixed income, and they would then be matched up with subsidies and potentially roommates that would then live there and help them.
Yes, just real quick to interrupt. No, what I meant is, like, if you go into, like, say, for instance, Vela Inn, and you find two seniors, not home sharing, not that, your program, that's what I'm talking about, your program, what we are discussing right here. Do you have a template or something to work out regarding that procedure? So you have a senior that walks in, for instance, and he says, I can only afford like $200-300 a month. And you goes, well, it's going to cost you $5 or $4 or whatever. And then you have another one that says the same thing, and try to get them together. That way you'll be able to solve a problem and only in one unit.
Yeah. So we don't really deal with that. So in the example of the Bella Vista Inn, we our role as the city is really, in most cases, to fund the project and help the developer build. And in this case, we did not fund the Bella Vista Inn. But the developer, RCD, Resources for Community Development, they're really in charge of how they occupy the building, and they have to follow certain county guidelines because transitional housing and supportive housing has a different it's a queue so you have to be assessed. So the first step is to be assessed to understand your vulnerability, the level of your vulnerability, and there's a way that they measure that. And so anyone who is housed in Calabasas or supportive housing, or in this case the transitional housing at the Bella Vista Inn, would have to go through that process and be assessed by a social worker. And at that point, my sense is that if they identify as having a significant other, then they would potentially be placed together. But I am not aware of people being sort of matched up as roommates if they're not sort of applying in that way, or if they're not sort of a family unit, so to speak.
Are you done? You want to have another question? Go ahead.
Not really. You didn't really answer the question, but I get an idea what's going on. One of the things in Transitional Unit for Domestic Violence, our city here for over close to 20 years, we had that right on the El Camino, right next to the police department. So it looks like we were ahead of our times here in the city doing that. So just want to make that, aware that we already had that here in the city of Santa Clara a long time ago. It's right on the El Camino next to the police department for domestic violence. We can set families there for a short term, which is really important. I wish we had a bigger one because things, especially the way things are right now.
Yeah, I wanted to answer your other question. I think you had one more, which was about tracking success. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great question. I'm trying to think about how this is a pretty new thing. Permanent supportive housing, Measure A started in 2015. So some of these projects are just starting here in Santa Clara County. Yes, in LA and maybe other places, these projects, this type of development with service enhanced development may have been around for longer. So I think it is absolutely important to understand how well they're performing. The county absolutely does that. So the county does have regular reports out to the Board of Supervisors on all of these developments and who's the demographics in terms of who's housed and how long they remain housed. So yes, to answer your question shortly, yes, the county really is the one that's assessing the performance of permanent supportive housing and transitional housing because they fund the services.
Thank you. We'll move to Commissioner Salem.
Okay, now that I'm unmuted. So Commissioner Biagini and Commissioner Bouza asked 95% of the questions I had about the financial side of things. I'm going to stick to a simple logistics one. How is the task force communicating outward to the residents and even to the homeless, the progress and the items that are being tackled? Because I would like it if there was a way that you could point someone at the city website and say, start here, you can reach in and discover what's happening in Santa Clara for our homeless. And it would lead out to some form of progress report or even to the list of minutes or something that gives people an idea of what's going on and how they can be a part of it or how they can help it. And that would be the first step. And the second half of the question is, what is your partnership strategy with developers and people helping to reduce the cost of building around homelessness do you have an agenda for that, or is that outside the scope of the task force? Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll start with your first question. We really haven't, to the extent that our commissioners are reaching out to their friends and associates, really is their own decision. We don't really have much control over that. Of course, when we promote, for example, we had a larger community event that was sort of an open meeting for a large meeting, and we did ask them specifically to help get people to that meeting, and I believe 150 people applied, or I should say registered, and less, I think about 50 actually attended the meeting. But I do think that they did reach out to their colleagues, because that's 150 is pretty good, even though not everyone showed up. In terms of a progress report, we don't currently have a progress report. Again, this is pretty new work, so we report things in different ways. But I think that's a great comment. I think that's a great. I think that's usually what you do with a plan. So once you have a plan, it makes sense to report out on the progress of that plan, and when we do that in other cases. So I think since this is the first time we really have a formal plan, or we will have a plan, then I think that would be, I think that's a good suggestion that there be that check-in. And that's some of the feedback, frankly, that we've heard, is that there needs to be, because this issue is so multifaceted and so many parties are involved, both locally within the city, outside the city, regionally, communication is key in understanding where we're at, how impactful that is important. So I think that's a valid point, and definitely should be considered when the council, looks to formulate this plan and give us direction on it. So I made a note.
It's probably more of a trigger for staff. I can't imagine adding more work to their already overloaded workload. But if we could at least find a way to say, you want to find out about homelessness in Santa Clara, go to santaclaraca.gov/homeless and just start there. Leave a comment, add an idea, sign up for the mailing list. Like we have mailing lists on so many other things. Sign up for a mailing list to get updates on progress and open issues. And because I think you can't expect the entire community in Santa Clara to focus 100% on homelessness, because they don't tend to respond until it becomes something that directly affects them. I do that with everything. I can't do everything. I can't be everywhere and do everything, but I would like to know what's going on with homelessness in Santa Clara, and having a place to start for that, even if it's minimal, would be a huge advantage, and something you can advertise to others. That's all. That was my comment. Is let's make it visible. All right.
Thank
The
you.
second half of the question, I'm still waiting for. That's a good one.
I'm happy to answer that one too.
Sure.
So you asked, the question was whether we're working to reduce the cost of building supportive housing. Is that accurate?
More so that how are you working with developers and getting sponsorships, or not sponsorships, that's a bad use, partnerships with developers that are seeking to bring together solutions to the problems that you're proposing that we can tackle. It's just a liaison to the community to the part of the development community that would be the ones building the homes or building the apartments. We have a few that are clearly very skilled at that, but I'm sure there are other developers out there that would maybe want to be a part of our process and part of the solution. So if you can figure out a way to start opening conversation with those developers, I think it would benefit everyone. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, we're open to working with anyone who wants to work with us. As we are able to accumulate funding to lend out to developers for new projects, that gives us an opportunity to do a notice of funding availability where we can set some of the standards of what we're looking for, what income levels we're looking to target, whether it's supportive housing or non-supportive housing. We can, to some extent, help guide that with the funding that we lend out and leverage to other sources. So when we do have that ability, which hopefully in the next year or two we will, we can absolutely welcome anyone from down the road, up the road, who maybe hasn't done work yet in Santa Clara to entertain applying for that funding and bringing forward a project proposal. So we're definitely open to that.
Commissioner Saleem, do you have anything to follow up on? I will move to Commissioner Bhatnagar. You had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And first of all, let me apologize for my lateness. My question is actually regarding any case studies that we may have of various other cities tackling this issue, which is common in many places, tackling this issue successfully. Meaning, have we done some research on where some of the success stories might be and what we might be able to learn from them? In the round I have, and we'll take that offline, but I wanted to kind of ask that question and see where we can go with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are always open to new case studies, new examples of what's working in other places, especially places with similar conditions. So, we know that there's a lot of good work that's happening here within Santa Clara County in terms of sort of the housing first approach and transitional housing models, experimental housing models that are less expensive and faster to put up. So I think the community plan to end homelessness, the county's plan, is built on best practice research. It's built on examples from other places, and it is built on that. But I think there's always room for improvement. There's always new ways, new resources, new ways to approach things. So I think this is the beauty of the outreach and planning phases. Any ideas from anyone, even if this isn't your day job or if this isn't something you do all the time, that's why we do outreach, because it's all important. In terms of how we incorporate that into, or how we might incorporate that into the local plan, I think we have to narrow down and figure out what is it we want to focus on. And once we know what we want to focus on, we can then go look for great examples of how best to do that. So I think it starts very broad. I'll just give an example. You might want to focus on outreach. Like, what's the best way to reach people in Santa Clara? We don't have a shelter or a service center here. What's the best way to reach them? So you might look to other small cities that don't have service centers. San Jose has lots of service centers. So you might look for examples of that. You might look for examples of if you have a mobile shower or laundry service, where is the best place to put that? Where it will be best used? What's the best way to support the various needs? So I think where we're at is we're getting that information from people with lived experience, from our task force members. And once we know what the issues are here that are most important, we can then attach those to case studies and best practices.
Yes, thank you, and appreciate your answer very much. I'll yield, but just to say that I'll take it upon myself to try and have a separate meeting with you so we can share some of these out of the box solutions that other cities might have, being able to utilize, and how that might be applicable in our case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Commissioner Huang.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Actually, My first question is how many staff in this task force? That's an easy one. Actually, my second question is, yeah, you list some projects. Do we have any facility that serve homeless right now? My third question is, homeless, since how can you tell it's from Santa Clara or nearby other city, right? Say Cupertino or San Jose. The first one is, I know you listed some high risk homeless, but you know the salary it's going high, and probably when you have a job, you don't belong to that list, right? The risk list. But because of the housing cost so high, the salary so high, once you lost your job, you immediately fall into homeless. How can we handle this kind of person? The reason I ask is I still remember last Thanksgiving Day, a young woman just carry a couple bags, walking to a park, try to find a place to sleep in the park. If we have this kind of situation, what should we do? Who should we contact? Yeah, okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you. I'm just taking notes. So let me start off. I think your first question was how many staff are working on the task force? Is that what you?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, our city, yeah.
So it's myself and Jennifer Carvalho in the Housing and Community Services Division. So we staff this task force, and then we also have home-based staff, which is our consultant that the city council asked us to hire to really, they're doing the bulk of the work in terms of organizing the content, the presentations, leading the discussion, facilitating the discussion, planning out the various focus group meetings. So it's a combination of city staff with Homebase, our consultant. In terms of, I think you asked whether there are service facilities in Santa Clara. There are some, but for example, Bill Wilson Center, Covenant House, they do provide services, but they are focused on youth and young families. The Salvation Army in the past did offer case management services, but has since transferred those to their San Jose offices. So to my knowledge, they're not currently offering as many services in Santa Clara as they used to. And of course, there's some amount of faith-based groups that are providing kind of ad hoc, and we're still trying to get a sense for that, because it is very decentralized. So I think to answer your question, our position is when you think of an organization like Sunnyvale Community Services, which is a large, well-funded organization that offers shelter, a place to eat, a place to wash your clothes, a place to get help with job search, case management, it's all in one place. Fremont has a similar thing with a navigation center. That doesn't exist here. And so people need to travel outside of the city to get those, especially for case management services. If you're not already housed, it is a little bit more difficult to access a case manager. Once you're housed, you're assigned a case manager if you live in supportive housing. To answer your question about how can you tell if someone's from Santa Clara, it's really when you're assessed and they have a kind of a form that you fill out with a social worker, really it's just where you spend the most time. And so it's really just what the person writes on their form. There's no kind of official follow-up to see, have they spent more than X amount of hours in a place. So it's really, it's usually where you either work or spend the most time. And That's where you're affiliated. You're affiliated with that city. Incidentally, in what we have heard from past point-in-time counts, the vast majority of people who are homeless in Santa Clara County grew up here. They didn't come from other parts of the Bay Area. They didn't come from other parts of the state or other states. They grew up here. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. I think your last question was about
Sir, we'll give you an opportunity. I'm holding till he. Yes, we noted. Thank you.
Yep, it's okay. So your question was for people who have lost a job and who are homeless, but really just need a little bit of help in order to get back on their feet because they're able to work, they're able to get a job that could pay the rents here. They just need that that extra month or short period of assistance. And so yes, the answer is yes. There are programs for that. I would say the easiest answer is just have them call us, have them call the Housing and Community Services phone number, and we will connect them with the nonprofit that administers emergency rental assistance and emergency deposit assistance. They would also probably want to get assessed. And once they're assessed, they would be eligible for rapid rehousing. They might also be eligible for tenant-based rental assistance. Again, depending on each program is a little bit different, and that's where the housing staff really comes in handy. In that sometimes it's a little bit confusing to know who to call and when. So we can help you with that.
Yeah, actually, last Thanksgiving Day, the lady actually tried to call multiple shelters. But as you mentioned, she was too old for some youngsters. So the result was nowhere can take her. Fortunately, one of her friends hosted her. So I don't know. Yeah, this is not a question, just a statement. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Huang. I think Commissioner Biagini has a follow-up.
I'm going to try to be helpful here. So before we stray too far from the subject, when you made the comment about most of the homeless are born and raised here, so forth, how do you come to that information?
Actually, I was going to flip back, if I could flip the slides back.
Like, how do you know that, right?
Well, I don't know that personally. What I wanted to clarify was that when they do their point-in-time count every 2 years, they do a survey to determine some of the details around homelessness. I just wanted to go back to this slide because we kind of went through it pretty quickly. Let's see if this slide, I can't remember if I have it on there. Let's see. I don't think this slide has it, I'm sorry. It's another slide in the report. But there is another slide that shows the number of people, and I'll have to check on the data, like where it comes from. But it's based on information that's been gathered.
As part of the consensus?
I believe it is part of the point-in-time count.
Okay, I think our chair probably can help answer that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think most commissioners, do you have any additional questions before I give you my comments? This is very insightful, very timely, and I'm going to be enough to know, I would say dangerous enough, because this used to be half bread and butter for me at the county. So the Office of Supportive Housing leads this, but for questions, I think I do have a few. That was a great question by Commissioner Bozo on the senior housing. I had the same for the youth. City of San Jose, in fact, county led a huge effort for foster youth, which identified land, built housing, engaged with the youth who came out of foster care. There's a huge population that just comes out of foster care, but do not have the same ability or knowledge or feel even the dignity to go and ask for this support. So I would suggest the city of Santa Clara look at the same or even more to help the youth of our community and those who come out of foster care. It is, I would say, an unclaimed population because they are not visible to many, but do struggle when they go to university, when they go to school, they just sleep in cars, work, sleep, and there is no real resource. So I would engage with a youth community member as well within the city to support your analysis in your task force. So to the question about partnerships with developers, again, great questions by our commission members. The city and the county, again, had a huge effort with regards to tiny homes. They identified, again, land, partnered with actually innovative communities that built these small homes. And there was a drive to identify land, but it came with infrastructure needs. So again, I would look to the city to look inward on what potential land opportunities are there to identify real tactical projects, not just dependent on a third party, on a developer, but at some point we need to own our residents' needs. So the typical path to reducing encampments, again, I would be interested in, has the city known of any encampments that pose a general risk to the neighborhoods and or the community around? I'm citing a recent, and actually very, very recent, Oakland had a huge issue with their encampment addressing that the governor stepped in and actually threatened to remove funding to the city. But there was a huge fire that caused traffic and huge impacts to the neighborhoods. It is a real issue on both sides. The concerns from neighborhoods are just as real. So I want to make sure that a city has identified or in its needs a current assessment known encampments or areas. Typically they are by creeks, and it's a huge watershed issue as well. So while we are doing our analysis, and I'm looking to the consultants, I hope they're taking great notes at this time. We're paying them big money. They better make sure that we have all these areas understood and addressed. So in the path of reducing these encampments, the path are usually homeless shelters to transitional housing, to short stay housing, and then identifying affordable housing units within our larger projects. This is my 2 cents, so take it as color commentary. But I would hope in this path of reducing homelessness, the city responsibility kicks in to identify homeless shelters. As you just mentioned, and to to our Commissioner Huang's case study here, shelters are a huge shortage, especially in the days when we are really hot and when we are really cold. And city does not have any homeless shelters. So we are constant, unless I could be off in our, somebody keep me honest here. The next path is the transitional and supportive housing, which I think is the Bella Vista Inn and Kaifa projects. But another note there is that I didn't see services related to medical being offered. A large part of the services, of course, the county, I would like to understand who runs these programs. So it'll be helpful in all of these, I would say, developer-fronted projects or aided projects. We know how the programs are being run and how effective they are, and I'm sure county has a lot of programs that come in to do this. And then, of course, increasing our affordable housing component. I think there's a huge housing element discussion currently underway, but this is the trajectory that I see to help reduce homelessness. But I will end with the statement. We have 1,300 units identified, again, a great count, but the 326 and the 5,400 and odd number are a huge delta to catch up with. So 504 and 62. So I want to make sure that the city puts its money and where its words are in identifying land, in identifying staffing resources, in partnering with the county extensively in its supportive housing programs, and we take our affordable housing a notch up. So those are my comments. I'm sure you have additional feedback on all of that.
No, I mean, that's great feedback. Did you want me to answer some questions?
Go ahead. Whatever you can. I know it was a whirlwind.
So I think around the comments around youth, I think that's a great point. And I think my first thought is to connect with Sparky Harlan at the Bill Wilson Center, who's also one of our task force.
I saw that.
So yeah. I think
I've worked with them. I know.
Yeah. So I don't know if the group that you're describing is the same as who they work with, but that's what I would want to sort of start with.
It's the county-led effort. It's off of San Jose intersection, so it's a county-funded project.
Mm-hmm. In terms of tiny homes, that is the hardest part, is finding the place, the location, the land, and I think we do have some models now, most of them are in San Jose, Mountain View, of these different versions of interim and transitional housing. So I think that's the good news, is we can learn from what they've done. And so if the city council decides to go that route, then that's where we would look, is talk to our colleagues there in those cities that have figured it out, because that's pretty new. It's a new product. It didn't exist a few years ago here. We are aware of the encampments, and from time to time the city is cleaning up things that are left behind, pollution, and really the police department is really the first, I should say, frontline, I guess, responders to things that are happening in encampments. So really, it's a difficult discussion to have when you don't have a shelter. To remove encampments, offers no options, and so there's definitely impacts that encampments have on the larger community, in terms of the ones that you mentioned, and so I think that's very much top of mind in our discussions with other city staff in how to address that and how to create more options. I don't have any good answers for you tonight, unfortunately.
And to answer Commissioner Biagini's question, so the county does a census count every year. They go and actually volunteer-based. They do go and track individuals and do a whole census. And as part of that census, they typically try to identify, depending on how responsive they are, where they are from, what their needs are. So it's a volunteer-based, led by county, to do the census, and that's the data that we are hoping to get. I would be interested to see how the pandemic, 2019 is way dated in terms of just the magnitude of what the pandemic did, so not just in the 3 years that we lost, but I'm sure the pandemic multifolded that impact. We are doing this at a good time, at the last Planning Commission, and I'm very proud of our Planning Commission and City, we approved another project, so I hope that project is on. I didn't see the Charities Housing Project here, and I'm assuming that is also a supportive housing, or is it a 100% affordable housing project?
It is going to have some supportive units in it. I don't remember the exact breakdown, because they are going to be receiving Measure A dollars.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another one that's sort of, in progress.
Yes. And yes, the county has extensive tracking measures on the success, but the county can only do so much. The cities really have the people in them. And so while the county is able to give us the funding, or even the state, I think the true land aspect of it rests with the city. And as we are, I would say we are not land rich as a city, but our parking lots, our future specific plans, if we can own the responsibility of providing these for our community, so they're not going to City of San Jose or to Fremont or to Oakland, that would be a huge recommendation from my side, Planning Commission, to the city. And any other, I think we need to open for planning, public comments.
Commissioner
I'm sorry,
Salim has his
Commissioner
hand raised.
Salim, thank you. Commissioner Salim.
Okay, you actually spurred me to a new question. One of the things I didn't see discussed is homeless safety. How are we helping ensure that the homeless community we have now is protected or safe from even accidental issues? Like best example, both Councilman Park and I had separately visited an encampment that is at the intersection of Lawrence Expressway and the on-ramp from Stevens Creek. It was a little hole in the wall encampment, but every day that they had to go out and get something, they were crossing what's effectively a freeway on-ramp. And it just felt like Russian roulette every single day for people that didn't move as fast as rest of us maybe, or felt that they could take their lives in their hands so they'd have some place to tuck away at night. I'm not suggesting we block off all of these positions or all these areas, but maybe partner a little bit with Santa Clara Police to have those areas patrolled and monitored. Make sure that the pedestrians and the drivers are respectful of the fact that there may be someone back there and not to punch it, so to speak. And also just simple things like providing them with carts. I know this is crazy, but the number of shopping carts at the Safeway on Stevens Creek went to near zero because they were able to roll them out of the electronic barrier. And the Safeway then resorted to extreme measures to track their carts and to make sure that they were recovered. And it just seems unfair to the homeless that they're cornered into these extreme measures to try and survive. And a little bit of help from the city or from donations from any groups that are supporting the homeless could probably alleviate a lot of these issues. But I'm just curious what your interactions are with Santa Clara PD and other groups that would like to help secure the homeless. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I guess I would defer really to the police department. The police department has its own community response team. They are out in the encampments all the time. So I really can't speak for them. I don't know what thing, what ways.
Maybe invite them in to speak to you about their issues that they've encountered and incorporate those into your logistics and plans, because I'm sure they have a very unique perspective on homelessness and how they're called into action
Absolutely.
to assist during crisis situations.
And we have been working very closely with them. They've been
That's great.
attending all of the task force meetings.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
See two other hands raised. Is that from the members of public, Elizabeth? And we can go, if not any questions from the commissioners, we can move to public comments.
Well, we don't have any hands raised in Zoom to speak.
Okay, all right. I saw two hands raised. So we'll invite, so if you want to come. Thank you for your patience.
Mr. Adams, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Sorry?
You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
That's a point. May I say a few words, please? 4 years ago, or just over, our illustrious mayor said, ran on, we would get 3 minutes, which was like a 50% increase. I just feel it's wrong. There's nobody here. Maybe they're all offered me their time, and I can take all these seats.
We'll give you 3
I'm being
minutes, sir.
facetious, and I'm a little bit annoyed.
We'll give
I'm
you 3
sorry.
minutes. It's okay.
Thank you. The biggest problem we have here, and the gentleman, and I'm sorry, I apologize for my outburst before, but I've been in his position and trying to explain or research a problem. Now, I've lived in this town over 50 years. I've been a homeowner all that time. Before that, I was in apartment on Washington Street. I come from Britain, and I'm a World War II child. I was in school in 1939 when the war started. I'm 88. I've been through a lot. I ended up in an orphanage and things like that. I'm not saying people are equipped to do what I've done or accomplished. I just want to say that I've had that kind of experience. I've also, in job losses, had to go and work in LA when I got bumped out of my job here. And that lasted 3.5 years. And in that time, I also lived I bought myself a Volkswagen camper thing, and I lived in that. And I know what a chore it is to drive around and stay away from the police and stay there. But I lived in there 4 days a week. I worked 12-hour days so I could go home for the weekend for 3 days. And I drove back home again. But that's how I lived and did that. I'm not expecting other people to do it. But I wasn't homeless, and yet the type of thing, we have a lot of people doing that right now. They come on Saratoga Avenue and other places, and they're parking for their week, whatever it is, or 2 or 3 days, and then they're moving back again. So they are causing some problems on our streets. The kids are having difficulty playing out and things like that. But that isn't what I'm on about. What I'm really upset about is that everybody, not just we here in California, but all over the country, we're calling this homeless. There are very few of these people that you see around. They are all poorly or sick, or they don't want to do what they're doing. They're not happy doing that. They don't know what else to do. It's the drugs that they've been given or put into, even when they were kids, they've never been able to get clear. But worse than that, the eldest group right there right now are mostly ex-Vietnam vets. Believe me, they are. But you have to identify. Until we identify the people that we have in these camps, and that means if we were so bad years ago, our country, I'm American now, our country, we went to upheave. What if they came and took all the Italians or the British and took us away right now? That's what we did to the Japanese families that didn't have the notification to go to Chicago, or when I worked with Shin Nakai and Carter, all those people. I've worked with them. I know what they went through. I know what I've been through. But until we identify these...
Give you 1 more minute, sir.
Okay, let's get an ID of every person that's supposed to be, that we have in our city. Let's identify them. It's no use going around saying, oh, fill out a card. I put... What are you, Mickey Mouse? I wanted to see their name. I have to give you my name. To be a scoutmaster, I have to almost gave blood. You need to have proper identification of every person there is, pick out who the Vietnam vets are, take care of those guys first. I don't care if they're absolutely ball crazy. Look after them, take care of them. They looked after us. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon, everyone.
We understand.
You've got to identify the people. That's the ID cards. I have card. Everyone here has an identification card. Until every one of them has an ID card, you trace where they're coming from.
You've been a great voice for those who could not be here. I think your voice is well heard. It's okay.
Don't be sorry. Thank you.
You have been, I think, the voice that we needed. So truly appreciate you with all your years to be here today to convey the need and the true need is for the veterans out there. So I acknowledge and I hear you, and I hope staff has taken note. We will ensure that you receive, and you're welcome to contact staff to see you get updates on how this happens. Staff, if you just want to get his contact information so that he can be connected to the progressive efforts. But I will, if we don't have any comments, we'll go into discussion. Yeah. Understood, sir. And thank you again for being here. Very much appreciated. Staff, are there any other?
No, we do not have any other hands raised to speak, so.
So we'll move to closed public hearing, please.
It's not a public hearing, Madam Chair, so you don't need to take that action.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Attorney. All right, so I just want to see if the commissioners have any other additional thoughts, comments. I have plenty, but.
I am so grateful to Keith Adams for speaking up tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment here? There is programs for the VA, for the veterans, Vietnam veterans, because I worked with them and I helped. And over here, right on Winchester, that's the VA's fair too, that they will help them. And there's housing for them, temporary housing too, out in Alum Rock area and in other places. But a lot of them, like you mentioned, they are sick. They've been on drugs that they never got clean, and also dealing with the problems from the drugs they never were able to do. And not only that, but dealing with the Agent Orange too. A lot of them are really sick, and they even get ALS and all this. So they're one of the forgotten group of veterans that we have.
And I'll echo, probably even close. So the need for addressing, and I don't want to just say homelessness, for people who do not have any other means, for housing, resources, support, it's a gamut. It goes, the homelessness is just that they don't have a roof over their head, but it's much more than that, and that's this entire support structure. The city has taken great strides and put this at its helm. There is funding now, and I hope that staff and the community come together in addressing. At our last meeting, it was pretty revealing. I watched it online. I apologize. I couldn't be here physically. But I think there is a component of educating our city and our communities about who these people are and what support we are giving them to get them out of the situation they are in. It is not a taboo anymore. I truly hope. I have worked with these individuals. I know how good and how hardworking they are. Many a time it could be that they've just had some minor criminal history behind them that limits their ability to get any employment. It's some of our youth. It's some of our seniors. It's some of the domestic violence affected individuals. and its children. So I hope the community and opens its heart and, in fact, neighborhoods. These are individuals who need us, and I truly hope the city takes a stronger stance in identifying tactical land solutions. Because as much as we know that the need is there, I don't think we have made any progression in identifying shelter land or supportive housing. So we are making steps, we are making great strides, so I appreciate, again, staff bringing us this study session. I do look for the draft recommendation plan. I think that's where we'll give you additional feedback. So thank you again, very hard work. Any other closing comments from commission members? With that, thank you. We will close this topic. Moving on, what's our next business? I'm losing track, somebody remind me. Okay, I think move to what announcements, commission business. Let's see, where is that printed copy? Thank you. There you go. Yes, thank you. Okay, there we are. Reports of commission, board liaison, and committee members. Any announcements or other items from our commission members? I have one, if there's none, unless I see some hands. I'm sorry if I missed any. I wanted to truly acknowledge the amazing job that our Vice Chair, Hero, supported by staff and other commission members did at our last meeting. It was I think it was a benchmark and a milestone meeting where we had over 100 people, and what can I say? It was one of the most professional, empathetic, understanding, and a well yielding result. So I truly support and endorsed Commission's recommendation to City Council, but I wanted to thank Commissioner Biagini here and staff, and of course Commissioner Hero is not here. I truly wanted to appreciate how much I enjoyed watching that meeting later. So thank you. All right, moving to second item, Commissioner Travel and Training Reports, request to attend training. Any update from staff on our trainings? Oh, Commissioner Lance. Ah, I love the dance. I think you should do that more often.
I really wish I was there.
I wish you were too. I miss you.
No, we're not going to be dancing on the table.
Unfortunately, I went to an eye doctor today, and they dilated me to the point that I had to be practically in the bat cave to be able to see what's going on. It's getting better. I don't know when is the right time, but I wanted to welcome Commissioner Bouza. He's riding in on a very odd wave of change, but it's great to see him able to join us so quickly, and I look forward to his long-term participation with the commission. Thank you.
This is the right time. Any other welcoming comments to Commissioner Bouza right now?
I just want to say thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in person and working together with the commission here together. And we started already with Nancy here, so we can hold hands and go, yay. Thank you so much.
All right. Getting to the trainings. Elizabeth, do we want to acknowledge the October trainings? Yes.
Well, we did. I don't have that information in front of me right at the, well, actually I do. So we have all commissioners, all 7, virtually attending the California APA conference. That's October 1 through 4, through the 4th, and then October 7th, that Friday. I don't have it in front of me, I apologize. We have an in-person training in Cupertino. All of you have been signed up for that also.
Thank you. And would that be like a posted one? So all 7 in attendance virtually?
The 7th is in person.
Okay, so we need to just,
So all have been signed up. I know Commissioner Buza has mentioned he's unable to attend, and of course, we'll all touch base on that closer to the training.
There is actually an exception to the Brown Act where a majority of the members of the body can all attend a training session without agendizing it, as long as you don't all cluster in the back of the room and talk about city business.
Oh, darn.
I'm watching you, Chair Kuru.
But thank you for that. Again, please, whatever I say is a joke there. Okay. Okay, moving to the next topic. We have Planning Commission, Director of Community Development reports, budget updates, staff.
We typically give the budget update just one time a month, so basically your balance is still at $15,746.
Thank you again. And that includes our attending, our cost for attending the virtual, what is it? It's the California APA
California
conference?
APA, and
Okay.
that one is $150 each commissioner.
Thank you, and I see Leslie here. Hi, Leslie.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
So upcoming agenda items for the Planning Commission, our next meeting is September 21st, and we do currently have 3 items for you on that agenda. Very similar to this evening, the use permit for alcohol use, a sign variance, and a tentative map. So then item number 3, City Council actions. There were no actions to report back to the Commission from the Council's meeting on August 16th. That's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you, Leslie. Do we know when the Charities Housing Project will go to City Council?
September
Yeah.
27th.
Yep, September 27th.
Okay. Thank you. Ooh, that was a
We're all
Jeopardy
very aware
question
of that
there.
project, yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a
Commissioner
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Buza? Okay. Second. Thank you. Right.
I gave the second.
Should we consider this a unanimous vote? Is there anyone that objects?
To the adjournment?
Yeah, correct. Typically, we don't take the vote, so I'm just saying.
Go ahead, stand up
I'd like
and
to
do
see
it.
them. But that was a rapid one, Commissioner Buzo, so next time we'll take a little pause. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
we're good.
Thank you all, and thank you, Xander. Thanks, staff.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
See you in September. Isn't there a song
Yes,
about
a song,
that?
yeah. See-